Are you secretly trapped? Trapped by the endless loop of not quite good enough, delaying your dreams, and burning out in the chase for flawless? What if the secret to achieving more impact, with less stress, isn't about working harder for perfection, but about doing something radically different? In a world obsessed with flawless, we're revealing a timeless truth: the power of good enough. Get ready to break free from the paralysis of perfection and discover the surprising path to massive results and real peace of mind. Stop chasing perfection, the good enough principle for greater impact. Part 1. The peril of the perfect. Why good enough is the first step to action. The relentless pursuit of perfection can be a silent, insidious trap. It promises a flawless outcome, a pristine product, a perfectly articulated idea. Yet, more often than not, it delivers paralysis. In an era demanding agility and decisive action, the quest for the ultimate often means never starting, never shipping, never truly impacting. The world doesn't wait for ideal conditions, and history is rarely shaped by those who hold out for flawlessness. True impact often emerges from the courage to declare something good enough and release it into the wild. Consider the immense pressure in any high-stakes endeavor. Whether it's launching a new product, writing a critical report, or making a life-altering decision, the temptation to tweak, refine, and polish indefinitely is powerful. The voice whispers, "It's not quite ready. One more edit, one more feature, one more consultation." This isn't dedication. It's procrastination disguised as diligence. It's the fear of imperfection, a fear that ironically guarantees imperfection's ultimate triumph, the failure to act at all. Many ambitious individuals fall prey to this. They possess brilliant ideas, meticulous plans, and boundless potential, but they become ensnared in an endless loop of optimization, believing that if they just work a little harder, think a little longer, or gather a little more data, they can eliminate all risk, preempt all criticism, and guarantee unassailable success. The tragic irony is that in their pursuit of the perfect, they miss the window of opportunity, lose momentum, and allow less perfect but more agile competitors to seize the moment. Their perfect remains a theoretical construct, while the good enough ideas of others are already creating tangible value. Think about any major project you've ever undertaken, be it professional or personal. How many times have you delayed launching, submitting, or even sharing because you felt it wasn't quite there? The final review becomes an eternal loop. The minor flaw becomes a glaring imperfection. The excellent becomes the enemy of the done. This mental entanglement is precisely what prevents impact. Impact, by its very nature, requires engagement with the real world, and the real world is inherently messy, unpredictable, and far from perfect. The antidote to this paralysis lies in a fundamental shift in mindset. Understanding that perfection is often the enemy of progress. It's about recognizing when a task, a plan, or a product has reached a level of quality that is sufficient to meet its purpose, then having the courage to release it. This isn't about promoting sloppiness or mediocrity. Far from it. It's about defining what good enough actually means in a given context. What level of quality is necessary to achieve the desired outcome, not what level of quality is theoretically possible given infinite time and resources. For instance, imagine a critical report that needs to inform an urgent decision. A perfectionist might spend weeks refining every sentence, adding every conceivable piece of data, and checking every footnote multiple times. The good enough approach recognizes that the decision needs to be made now. The report, while maybe not Pulitzer-winning prose, must be accurate, clear, and comprehensive enough to guide that immediate choice. A perfect report delivered too late is a useless report. An imperfect, yet accurate and timely report can change the course of events. This principle is particularly evident in high-stakes environments where delays are costly. When you're making a critical decision under immense pressure, waiting for every single piece of information, every single contingency plan, or every single expert opinion is a luxury you cannot afford. You must act with the best available information. recognizing that further delay might be more damaging than proceeding with a less than perfect solution. The decision to move forward, even with some unknowns, is a demonstration of courage and strategic clarity. The peril of the perfect also extends to personal growth. Many people delay pursuing new skills, starting a business, or even initiating difficult conversations because they fear their initial attempts won't be flawless. They might think, I need to read 5 more books before I can start writing, or I need to practice this perfectly before I try it in public. This obsession with pre-perfection keeps them trapped in preparation, never stepping into the arena where real learning and growth occur. Good enough isn't about settling, it's about giving yourself permission to learn and improve through action. It's about understanding that iteration, not initial perfection, is the true path to mastery. This initial understanding of the good enough principle is the crucial first step. It requires an honest self-assessment of our own tendencies towards overthinking and over-preparation. It demands a recalibration of our internal metrics from flawless to effective. By recognizing that the pursuit of ultimate perfection often leads to stagnation, we begin to unlock the potential for continuous action, learning, and ultimately greater impact in a world that rewards execution far more than idealized intentions. Part 2. The calculated imperfection defining good enough in high stakes. Once you recognize the peril of perfectionism, the critical next step is to understand what good enough truly means, especially when the stakes are high. This isn't about settling for mediocrity. It's about a calculated imperfection, a strategic decision to prioritize timeliness and effectiveness over theoretical flawlessness. It requires a clear understanding of your objective, a ruthless assessment of what's genuinely needed, and the courage to release a solution that meets those defined parameters, even if it's not exhaustively optimized. Think of a crisis situation. When a building is on fire, the good enough solution isn't a meticulously designed, aesthetically pleasing new structure. It's a fire engine that arrives, sprays water, and puts out the flames. The goal is to extinguish the fire, not to win an architectural award. In such scenarios, every second spent seeking perfection in the response could lead to catastrophic losses. The best solution is the one that is effective and delivered now. This principle is fundamentally about defining your minimum viable product, MVP, for any given situation. What is the absolute core functionality, the essential information, or the necessary action that must be delivered to achieve your primary objective? Everything beyond that core, while potentially beneficial, becomes a refinement that can be iterated upon after the initial impact has been made. The good enough mindset shifts the focus from an endless list of potential improvements to the critical few elements that drive immediate value. Consider a project manager facing a tight deadline for a crucial client presentation. A perfectionist might insist on bespoke graphics for every slide, extensive animations, and multiple rounds of internal review, potentially missing the deadline. The good enough project manager understands the core objective: to clearly communicate key findings and recommendations by the deadline. They'll prioritize accurate data, clear messaging, and a professional, but not over-engineered visual presentation. If it means using standard templates or fewer custom animations, but it delivers the essential information on time, that's the good enough that leads to client satisfaction and project success. The refinements can come later, if needed. This approach requires strong judgment and discipline. It means resisting the urge to add just one more thing, or to revisit a decision that is already functional. It's about being able to say, this meets the criteria. It works. It solves the problem. It is now ready for deployment, release, action. This isn't laziness. It's strategic efficiency. It recognizes that the incremental value of continuous refinement often diminishes rapidly, while the cost of delay, in terms of lost opportunity, increased pressure, or missed deadlines, skyrockets. Another powerful aspect of calculated imperfection is the power of feedback loops. When you release something good enough, you immediately start gathering real-world data and feedback. This genuine user experience is far more valuable than any amount of internal theorizing or endless refinement. You learn what truly works, what needs improvement, and what was completely unnecessary. This rapid iteration allows for faster learning and more effective optimization down the line, leading to a truly superior product or outcome much quicker than a single, drawn-out pursuit of initial perfection. The good enough mindset embraces the reality that perfection is an ongoing journey, not a static destination. Think of a writer who needs to draft a proposal. A perfectionist might get stuck on the first paragraph, agonizing over every word. The good enough writer focuses on getting the core ideas down, drafting a coherent structure, and ensuring all essential points are covered. They recognize that the first draft will be imperfect, but it serves the purpose of getting ideas on paper. Subsequent drafts, informed by a complete initial version, will then refine and polish. The good enough draft becomes the necessary raw material for true excellence, avoiding the crippling blank page syndrome. Ultimately, defining good enough is about clarity of purpose. When you know exactly what problem you're solving or what impact you need to make, it becomes easier to identify the minimum requirements for success. This calculated imperfection isn't about lowering standards. It's about optimizing for impact. Over idealism. It frees you from the shackles of endless tinkering and empowers you to act decisively, delivering value into the world faster and more consistently. It's the essential skill for anyone who wants to move beyond intention and truly make a difference. Part 3. The courage of release, embracing the inevitable flaws and learning from action. The most formidable barrier to good enough isn't the act of creation, it's the courage of release. It's the moment you decide to push past the nagging, doubt, the lingering imperfection, and launch your creation into the world. This is where the rubber meets the road, where theoretical perfection gives way to real-world impact. Embracing good enough requires acknowledging the inevitable presence of flaws and trusting that learning through action is superior to paralysis by analysis. For many, the fear of criticism, the dread of being exposed as not perfect, is paralyzing. This fear can manifest as endless refinement, a self-imposed prison of tweaks and revisions that prevent any actual product or idea from seeing the light of day. But the truth is, every creation, every decision, every launched initiative will have flaws. There's no escaping it. The courage of release isn't about releasing flawed work carelessly. It's about having the conviction that the value derived from action, from learning through real-world feedback, outweighs the theoretical comfort of internal perfectionism. Consider the launch of any major initiative or product. Before it hits the market, there are countless simulations, internal tests, and expert reviews. Yet, the moment it interacts with real users, in real environments, unexpected bugs, overlooked flaws, and new insights inevitably emerge. A perfectionist might see this as a failure of their initial design. A leader embracing good enough sees it as invaluable data. They understand that the true testing ground is the real world, and that early release, even with minor imperfections, allows for faster learning and more precise optimization. Think about the decision to ship software. A software company aiming for 100% bug-free code before launch would never release a product. Instead, they operate on a good enough principle. They release a version that is stable, functional, and meets core user needs, knowing that minor bugs will be discovered and fixed in subsequent updates. Their courage to release allows them to capture market share, gather user feedback, and iterate quickly, ultimately leading to a more robust and user-friendly product than if they had waited indefinitely for theoretical perfection. The good enough principle, in this context, is the engine of innovation. This courage isn't just about professional endeavors. It applies deeply to personal growth. If you're trying to learn a new skill, perhaps public speaking, a new language, or even a new hobby, the temptation is to practice privately until you're flawless. But mastery rarely happens in isolation. The courage of release means delivering your first awkward presentation, having your first halting conversation in a new language, or sharing your initial, imperfect creative work. It's during these moments of vulnerability, when your good enough is exposed, that the most rapid and profound learning occurs. The immediate feedback, the overcoming of fear, the simple act of doing, are far more potent teachers than endless internal rehearsal. The discomfort inherent in releasing something good enough is precisely where growth lies. It forces you to confront your insecurities about imperfection and to trust in your ability to adapt and improve. It shifts your mindset from seeking an impossible zero-defect launch to embracing a continuous improvement journey. The flaws become not signs, failure, but markers for future refinement. The initial version becomes a vital baseline from which to measure progress. Ultimately, the courage of release is about recognizing that impact always precedes perfection. You cannot impact the world from a hidden laboratory of endless refinement. You must act, you must share, you must engage. By having the courage to release your good enough into the world, you open the door to real-world interaction, invaluable feedback, and the authentic learning that transforms good enough into exceptional. It's the decisive step that turns intention into tangible results, allowing you to move beyond the fear of flaws and step boldly into the arena of meaningful contribution. Part 4. The iterative advantage. How good enough accelerates learning and optimization. The real magic of the good enough principle isn't just about initiating action. It's about the iterative advantage it unlocks. By launching with ease, functional yet imperfect solution, you gain invaluable real-world data and feedback that allow for rapid learning, precise optimization, and ultimately, a superior outcome that far surpasses any attempt at initial perfection. This is the core of agile methodology applied to life and work. The belief that consistent, incremental improvements based on real-time feedback lead to far greater impact than a single, prolonged pursuit of flawlessness. Think of it as a continuous learning loop. Instead of spending months or years trying to predict every possible scenario and build the perfect solution in isolation, the good enough approach gets a functional version out quickly. This initial version immediately begins generating real-world feedback. This feedback is gold. It highlights actual problems, reveals unexpected user behaviors, and uncovers genuine needs that no amount of internal brainstorming could ever predict. This direct interaction with reality allows you to learn at an accelerated pace. Consider the development of any highly successful online platform or app. They rarely launch as fully featured, flawless products. Instead, they start with a good enough core functionality. They then constantly release updates, new features, and bug fixes, all based on how users actually interact with the product. Each iteration is an improvement driven by real data, not theoretical assumptions. This iterative cycle, fueled by the good enough initial launch, allows them to adapt quickly, outmaneuver less agile competitors, and continually optimize their offering to meet evolving user demands. Their current excellence is a result of hundreds of good enough releases, each one leading to a better version. This iterative advantage isn't limited to technology. Imagine a sales professional trying a new pitch. A perfectionist might rehearse for days, trying to anticipate every question and deliver every line flawlessly. A professional embracing good enough practices the pitch a few times, ensures they have the core message down, and then delivers it to a real prospect. The first few attempts might be imperfect. They might stumble, forget a point, or get unexpected questions. But each interaction provides immediate feedback. What resonated, what fell flat, what objections arose. This real-time learning allows them to quickly refine their pitch, leading to much more effective presentations in future interactions than any amount of isolated practice ever could. Their good enough first attempts are the critical learning moments that accelerate their path to mastery. The power of iteration lies in its ability to de-risk the improvement process. Instead of making massive, high-stakes changes in one go, you make small, manageable adjustments based on observed results. If a change doesn't work, you quickly pivot. If it succeeds, you build upon it. This reduces the fear of failure, because each step is a learning opportunity, not a make-or-break perfection test. It fosters a mindset of continuous experimentation and adaptation, making you more resilient and innovative. Furthermore, releasing good enough early also builds momentum and confidence. Seeing tangible results, even if imperfect, provides a psychological boost that fuels further effort. It transforms abstract ideas into concrete progress, demonstrating that action, even if flawed, is always more powerful than inaction. This momentum becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, driving a continuous cycle of improvement and achievement. Ultimately, the iterative advantage of good enough teaches us that true optimization is an ongoing journey of learning and adaptation. It's about recognizing that the initial pursuit of perfection is often a mirage, leading to stagnation. By bravely launching with a functional solution, we unlock a powerful feedback loop that accelerates our learning, refines our approaches, and positions us for a trajectory of continuous improvement and ultimately, greater, more sustainable impact. It's the strategic choice to move from static ideals to dynamic progress. Part 5. The liberating mindset. How good enough leads to sustainable success and well-being. The journey from chasing elusive perfection to embracing the good enough principle culminates in a profound shift in mindset, one that is not only more effective for impact, but also far more liberating for your personal well-being. This isn't just a strategy for efficiency, it's a philosophy for sustainable success and reduced stress. By understanding that impact can be achieved through iterative progress, you free yourself from the crippling anxiety of flawlessness and unlock a more joyful, productive, and resilient approach to life and work. The relentless pursuit of perfection often comes at a steep personal cost. It fuels anxiety, procrastination, and self-criticism. It can lead to burnout, missed opportunities, and a constant feeling of inadequacy, because true perfection is, by definition, unattainable. The good enough mindset, conversely, offers a powerful antidote to this emotional drain. It allows you to celebrate progress over impossible ideals, fostering a sense of accomplishment and reducing the mental burden of constant striving for the unreachable. Consider the personal impact. A creative individual perpetually agonizing over their next project, never quite deeming it ready for public consumption, experiences immense internal pressure. They might feel creatively stifled and constantly frustrated. When they adopt the good enough principle, they give themselves permission to finish a draft, publish a piece, or share their work, even if they see imperfections. This act of completion, putting something out into the world, brings a surge of relief and a sense of forward momentum. They learn from the reception, refine their process, and move on to the next creation, fueling a more sustainable and enjoyable creative cycle. This shift in mindset also cultivates resilience. When you understand that the goal isn't initial perfection, but continuous improvement, every flaw or mistake becomes a valuable data point, not a personal failure. You learn to detach your self-worth from the flawless execution of a single task. This emotional detachment allows you to analyze setbacks objectively, extract lessons, and adapt more quickly, without falling into the trap of self-blame or despair. You become more robust, more adaptable, and less fragile in the face of inevitable challenges. Furthermore, embracing good enough frees up mental and physical energy that was previously consumed by endless tinkering. This newfound capacity can then be redirected towards starting new projects, exploring new ideas, or simply enjoying a healthier work-life balance. It's about optimizing your resources, not just for the project at hand, but for your overall well-being and long-term productivity. You gain a clearer perspective on what truly matters, both in your work and in your life. This liberating mindset is about recognizing that progress, not perfection, is the true engine of human endeavor. It's about understanding that the world moves forward through countless iterations, each one built upon the good enough efforts of those who dared to act. By embracing this principle, you join the ranks of those who create, who innovate, and who make a tangible difference, rather than remaining on the sidelines, waiting for an impossible ideal. In conclusion, stop chasing perfection is more than just a productivity hack. It's a fundamental philosophy for living a more impactful and fulfilling life. It's about the courage to recognize the peril of the perfect and the paralysis